My name is Evelyn Carter, and the last time my mother looked me in the eye and told the truth, I was probably 10 years old. Back then, life still felt simple. We lived in a faded blue house outside Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the porch leaned slightly to the left and the pipes screamed every winter like somebody trapped inside the walls. My mom, Linda Carter, used to tell people we were holding things together. Truth was, we were barely hanging on. My older brother Mason was the golden child from day one. Football captain, loud laugh, big dreams. The kind of guy who walked into a room and somehow made everybody feel like his audience. And me? I was the quiet daughter who spent more time fixing old laptops than talking to people. Mom used to joke about it in front of company. Evie would rather marry a computer than a man. Everybody laughed. I laughed too. That's what daughters like me do. We learn early that silence keeps the peace. Dad died when I was 14. Heart attack. Dropped dead in the garage while changing the oil in his truck. 1 second he was there, next second he was gone. After the funeral, Mason got louder, Mom got colder, and I became invisible. The only person who really saw me was my grandfather, Walter Hayes. Grandpa Walter was Dad's father, Vietnam veteran, mechanic, the kind of old-school American man who fixed things instead of replacing them. He smelled like engine grease, black coffee, and peppermint gum. He used to call me kiddo, not sweetheart, not honey, kiddo, like I was capable, like I mattered. Every Saturday morning, I sat beside him in his garage while he rebuilt carburetors or sharpened tools, and every single week, he taught me something. Sometimes it was about cars, sometimes it was about money, sometimes it was about people. "Listen carefully, kiddo," he told me once, while tightening a rusted bolt. "Folks will smile in your face while calculating what they can take from you." At 16, I thought he sounded paranoid. At 31, I realized he was a prophet. When I turned 18, Grandpa gave me a silver key. Tiny thing, worn edges. He pressed it into my palm and said, "That opens the deposit box at Mid-First Bank. Don't lose it." I stared at him. "What's inside?" "Something for your future." I laughed. "Grandpa, I'm broke. My future probably costs like $12. He smiled. "That's temporary." I didn't know then how important that key would become, or how badly my mother wanted what it opened. I left Oklahoma 2 weeks after college graduation. Seattle. Rain. Tiny apartment. Junior software engineer job paying barely enough to survive. But I loved it. For the first time in my life, nobody compared me to Mason. Nobody asked why I wasn't prettier. Nobody treated me like unfinished furniture. I built apps during the day, freelanced coding projects at night, ate microwave noodles sitting on the floor because I couldn't afford a couch, and honestly, I was happier than I'd ever been. Mom called maybe once every 2 months, usually to talk about Mason. Mason's thinking about opening a sports bar. Mason met this investor guy. Mason says Seattle probably changed you. She never once asked if I was okay. Not once. Then Grandpa Walter died. Winter storm, truck slid off Highway 51. Instant. I flew home for the funeral wearing a borrowed black coat because Seattle rent had drained my bank account dry. The church was packed. Grandpa fixed half the town's cars for 40 years. People cried hard for men like him, men who actually showed up. After the burial, Mom pulled me aside beside the cemetery fence. Snow covered the grass. Her lipstick looked too bright for a funeral. "Your grandfather left paperwork," she said. "I'll handle everything." I nodded, because grief makes you stupid. That's the thing nobody tells you. When your heart breaks, your brain stops asking questions. 3 weeks later, I went back to Seattle. Life moved on. Or at least I thought it did. About 6 months later, Mason's sports bar opened downtown Tulsa. Huge launch party. Instagram ads, custom neon sign, expensive whiskey shelves. The whole thing screamed money. Money Mason definitely didn't have. I didn't think much about it. Families like mine survive on denial. You stop looking too closely because the truth is exhausting. A year passed, then another. I got promoted, started leading engineering projects, bought my first real couch, even adopted a rescue dog named Murphy who snored louder than a chainsaw. One night, I remembered the silver key. Funny how memory works. One tiny thing pulls another behind it. I called Mid-First Bank the next morning. The woman on the phone sounded confused. "Miss Carter, that box was closed 2 years ago." I sat up straighter. What? It was emptied by the cosigner listed on the account. Who was the cosigner? Pause. Linda Carter. My mother. I felt cold all over, the kind of cold that starts inside your ribs. What was inside the box? "I'm sorry, ma'am. We can't disclose contents, but there were financial documents." I hung up and stared at my apartment wall for maybe 20 minutes straight. Murphy rested his head on my knee. I remember that detail, because dogs always know before humans do. Something was wrong. Really wrong. I flew to Tulsa the next weekend. Mom greeted me at the door, smiling too hard. "Evie, why didn't you tell me you were coming?" Because surprise gives liars less time to prepare. I asked about the deposit box immediately. Her smile vanished. "Oh, that? Your grandfather changed his mind before he passed." "About what?" "The money." My stomach dropped. "What money?" Another pause. Too long. Then she sighed dramatically like I was inconveniencing her. "He left around $70,000. $70,000. I almost laughed. I'd been living off ramen while my grandfather apparently left me enough money to breathe. Where is it? Mason needed help. There it was. Not guilt, not apology, just justification. Like the answer should have made perfect sense. "Mason's bar was struggling," Mom continued. "You know how hard business is these days." I stared at her. "You stole Grandpa's money." Her expression hardened instantly. Funny how fast mothers turn into strangers. "I did what was best for this family." "No," I whispered. "You did what was best for Mason." She slammed her coffee mug onto the counter. "You've always been selfish." Selfish. The daughter who left. The daughter who survived without asking permission. Families like mine always call independence selfish because dependence keeps their system alive. Mason walked in halfway through the argument. Perfect timing. Golden children always arrive when the spotlight turns dangerous. "What's going on?" Mom answered before I could. "Your sister is attacking me over Grandpa's money." Mason sighed like he was exhausted already. "Evie, seriously? Grandpa would have wanted us to help each other." "You mean help you?" He rolled his eyes. "You make everything dramatic." That sentence right there, that sentence ended my relationship with my family. Because suddenly I saw it clearly. Dad died, Grandpa tried protecting me, Mom stole it, Mason spent it, and somehow I was still the problem. I left 20 minutes later. Didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't slam the door. I just walked away. Sometimes the loudest thing you can do is leave quietly. I blocked Mom's number before my plane landed in Seattle, blocked Mason too. Then I worked. Hard. Harder than before. Not because I wanted revenge, because pain needs somewhere to go. I built software during the day, started my own AI logistics side project at night. Barely slept, barely dated, barely existed outside work. And slowly, the project started growing. First 1 client, then 3, then 10. Within 18 months, investors were emailing me. By 30, I co-founded a supply chain automation startup worth 8 figures. TechCrunch called me one of the sharpest operational minds in cloud logistics. Crazy world. The invisible daughter became valuable the second strangers noticed her. But here's the part that changed everything. While I was building my company, my mother was telling everyone I had a breakdown. I didn't know it yet, not until Aunt Carol called me at 2 in the morning. Her voice sounded shaky. "Evie? Yeah? Honey, are you okay?" I frowned. Of course I'm okay. Long silence. Then she whispered, "Your mother told the family you were institutionalized." My chest went numb. What? She said you had a mental collapse after losing your job. I laughed, actually laughed, because sometimes betrayal gets so absurd your body doesn't know what else to do. She said doctors advised no contact, Aunt Carol continued. She told everybody not to reach out. I sat there frozen while Seattle rain hammered my apartment windows. Mom hadn't just stolen money, she stole my identity, rewrote me into somebody broken because broken daughters ask fewer questions. And suddenly, everything made sense. Why nobody contacted me, why cousins unfollowed me, why family holidays went silent. She buried me socially because dead reputations can't testify. That night, Aunt Carol sent screenshots, family group chats, prayer chains, messages saying, "Keep Evelyn in your prayers. Mental illness is heartbreaking. Linda is being so strong through all this." My mother turned herself into a saint using my fake collapse. I stared at the screen until sunrise. Then I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to defend myself online. Truth doesn't scream. Truth waits. And eventually, lies choke on it. About 8 months after Aunt Carol's call, my company exploded. In a good way. We landed a national contract with a major retail chain. Revenue tripled. Investors came running. Suddenly, I was doing interviews, conferences, podcasts. People wanted my story. Small town girl builds tech empire. America eats stories like that up. One afternoon, a producer from CNBC emailed asking to feature me in a documentary about women founders in tech. Professional crew, national release, my full name, my face, everything. I almost said no. Not because I was scared, because I understood exactly what would happen once the episode aired. Every lie Mom told would collide headfirst with reality, and reality hits hard. I accepted anyway. The filming took 3 days. They shot footage in our office downtown, drone footage, interviews, scenes of me walking Murphy through Seattle streets holding toffee like every exhausted founder in America. At one point, the producer asked about my upbringing. I answered carefully. I learned early that survival and love aren't always the same thing. The producer blinked, then quietly said, "That's one hell of a sentence." Maybe, but it was true. The documentary aired on a Thursday night. By Friday morning, my inbox looked insane. Thousands of messages. Investors, recruiters, old classmates. And then, a text from Mason. First contact in almost 4 years. "Mom's freaking out. Call her." Not congratulations, not proud of you, not wow, just damage control. I ignored it. Then Aunt Carol called. "Avie," she whispered, "people are furious." Turns out half the family watched the documentary. Hard to miss when CNBC runs ads for 2 weeks straight. And funny enough, institutionalized people usually aren't giving keynote speeches in tailored blazers. Questions started immediately. When did Evelyn recover? Why didn't Linda tell anyone? Why does Evelyn seem perfectly fine? Mom panicked, started claiming it was a private struggle. But lies crack under pressure, especially old lies. Then came the reunion invitation. Grandma June's 85th birthday. Big family gathering in Tulsa, almost everyone attending. And according to Aunt Carol, Mom begged people not to mention the documentary. That's when I knew she was scared. Not guilty, scared. There's a difference. I hadn't planned on going. Seriously, I had zero interest in reliving childhood trauma beside a potato salad table. But then Aunt Carol said something that stuck in my chest. She spent years telling everybody who you were. Pause. Maybe it's time they meet you themselves. So I booked a flight. The reunion was held at a rented lodge outside Tulsa. Big wooden building, string lights, country music. The kind of place where families pretend they're healthier than they are. I arrived 20 minutes late on purpose. Not dramatic, strategic. Enough time for everyone to settle. Enough time for my entrance to matter. When I walked in, literally conversations stopped. No exaggeration. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Kids stopped running. One aunt gasped loud enough to hear across the room. Because broken girls aren't supposed to walk in looking successful. They're supposed to stay hidden where the story left them. Mom stood near the dessert table wearing pearls and fake calm. The second she saw me, all color drained from her face. Evelyn. I smiled politely. Hey, Mom. That's all. No explosion, no scene, just presence. Truth has weight. People feel it before words even arrive. Cousin Rachel approached first. Oh my God, she said. We thought... She stopped herself. Thought what? I asked gently. Her eyes shifted toward Mom. Nobody answered. Then Uncle Rob pulled out his phone. You're that CEO lady from TV. Not Evelyn, not family, the CEO lady. Funny how strangers give respect faster than relatives. Within minutes, people crowded around asking questions. Seattle, the company, the documentary, investors. Murphy somehow became popular too. And every single conversation quietly destroyed Mom's narrative. Because mentally unstable daughters don't build multi-million-dollar companies. The math stopped mathing. Mom finally cornered me near the drink table. You embarrassed me, she hissed. I blinked. You told everyone I was insane. I was trying to explain why you disappeared. I moved to Seattle. You abandoned this family. No, I said calmly. I escaped it. That sentence hit her harder than yelling ever could. Her eyes filled instantly, but I'd seen those tears before. Weaponized sadness. Mothers like mine cry when consequences arrive, not before. Mason walked over then, still handsome, still arrogant, still carrying himself like the room owed him applause. You need to let this go. Seriously, Avi, Grandpa's money is ancient history. Ancient history. $70,000 stolen from your future becomes ancient history when you're not the one who lost it? I looked him dead in the eye. How's the bar doing? Silence. There it was, because the bar closed. Of course it did. 6 months after Mom drained Grandpa's account. All that theft, all that betrayal, gone. Nothing left but unpaid tabs and dust. You think you're better than us now? Mason snapped. I shook my head slowly. No. Then I glanced around the room. I just stopped believing I deserved less. Nobody spoke. Not Mom, not Mason, not the relatives pretending not to listen. You could practically hear the family mythology collapsing in real time. Then Grandma June did something nobody expected. She stood up, 85 years old, Tiny woman, sharp eyes, and she pointed directly at my mother. "Did you lie about that girl?" Mom stuttered. I was protecting. Answered the question. Pure silence. Then Grandma looked at me. "You sick, honey?" "No, ma'am." "You ever been?" "No, ma'am." Grandma nodded once, then turned back to Mom. "Well, damn, Linda. I swear you could feel the oxygen leave the room." Mom started crying immediately, big, dramatic tears, but nobody moved to comfort her this time. That was new. People were finally seeing the performance instead of the pain. And once you see manipulation clearly, you can't unsee it. The reunion ended early. People left in clusters whispering hard, phones buzzing, questions flying. Mom locked herself in the bathroom. Mason got drunk in the parking lot screaming about loyalty. And me? I walked outside beneath Oklahoma stars feeling lighter than I had in years. Not victorious, just free. Because revenge doesn't heal you. Truth does. After the reunion, the family split right down the middle. Some relatives apologized, some disappeared entirely, some doubled down because admitting truth meant admitting they ignored obvious red flags for years. That's the ugly part nobody talks about. People hate realizing they helped the wrong person. It bruises their ego. Mom called me 73 times in 1 month. I know because my phone logs counted them. Voicemails, too. Crying, begging, explaining. I was overwhelmed. You don't understand the pressure. I did the best I could. But not one voicemail included the words, "I stole from you. I lied about you. I'm sorry." Real accountability sounds different. Mason never apologized either. Golden children rarely do. The world bends for them too often. 3 months later, Aunt Carol mailed me something. A faded photograph. Grandpa Walter sitting beside 14-year-old me in the garage. Grease on both our hands, huge smile on my face. Written on the back in Grandpa's shaky handwriting, "Kiddo always figures it out." I cried harder over that photo than anything else. Not because of the money, not because of the lies, because somebody saw me correctly before the world tried to rewriting me. That matters, more than people realize. A year later, my company expanded internationally. I bought a house overlooking Puget Sound. Nothing flashy, big windows, quiet mornings, space to breathe. Sometimes Murphy sleeps beside the fireplace while rain taps against the glass, and I think about the girl I used to be, the invisible daughter, the quiet kid, the family scapegoat. And honestly, I don't hate her anymore. I'm proud of her, because she left. That's the hardest thing sometimes. Not fighting, not screaming, leaving. Walking away from people who only love the version of you they can control. Mom eventually repaid part of Grandpa's money after lawyers got involved. Not all, part. But by then, the money meant almost nothing. The real theft wasn't financial. It was emotional. Years of being minimized, years of being rewritten, years of sitting quietly while louder people decided who I was. That's the kind of debt money never fully covers. Last winter, Aunt Carol told me Mom keeps a framed screenshot from my CNBC interview in her hallway. Apparently, she shows visitors sometimes. "This is my daughter," she says proudly. Funny, the same daughter she once buried alive with lies. I didn't know whether to laugh or feel sorry for her. Maybe both. A few weeks ago, I visited Grandpa's grave for the first time in years. Cold morning, windy, gray skies rolling over Oklahoma fields. I brought coffee, black, just how he liked it. I sat beside the headstone and told him everything. The company, Seattle, the reunion, the lies, the truth. And before leaving, I touched the stone and whispered, "You were right, Grandpa. Folks really do smile in your face while calculating what they can take. But here's the thing he didn't tell me back then. They can only take what you keep handing them. The second you walk away, the second you stop begging to be chosen, you become dangerous. not because you hate them, because you finally understand your own value. And people who built their power around your silence can't survive that version of you. So if you're listening to this right now while sitting in a room where nobody really sees you, hear me carefully. You are not difficult for wanting respect. You are not selfish for protecting your peace. And you are not required to stay small so broken people can feel big. Sometimes the bravest thing an ordinary person can do is leave the story they were assigned, then write a better one. That's mine. And trust me, it gets real quiet once the truth finally walks into the room.